the organizers to this event under the umbrella of Climate Week New York City. This is a panel called The Road to Environmental Justice, Financing Gender Equality and Women's Rights. And if I told you, make the list of the favorite people working on gender and climate, make the list. They're all here. So, modesty apart, I mean, this is it's true, it's real, and I hope we will be seeing people coming in. We know that there's a little bit of a situation on the registration and the passes and all of that, but we are trying to solve that. But we are full capacity already, so and we are missing one of the speakers, therefore we need one more chair. The chair is from the person who is a little late, coming from the other side of the city, is Hindou, and Oumarou Ibrahim, you know, all of you know. If you know, you have worked 24 hours in climate, you will know who Hindou is. So, this is also a very special day. I have a very well-written script. Don't think that I'm all over the place. But, you know, this is a very special day. This is September 25. This is the deadline, the second deadline for the submission of NDCs. We had a summit with more than 100 leaders speaking yesterday at the UN. And still, we have how many? 47 NDCs that have been submitted so far out of 198. And that represents around 25% of the emissions. My question is, where are the rest 75%? No, and we have done from CWL an analysis of where are women, where are girls, where is gender equality in the NDC scenario. It's not looking that good, but that's exactly what we're going to talk about. Not only on NDCs and on mitigation, but the core and the central role of women in climate action, and how much money is actually going to women that are transforming the climate space. And I would like to start by thanking our partners in crime. I don't like partners to just bring us together here. So thank you very much to Women Deliver. Yes.
Good trouble.
I know better one. Partners in struggle. Okay, so thank you, Women Deliver, Bahá'í International Community, Plataforma CIPÓ, for bringing us together, and of course, TWL Voices. I don't need to tell you that we are in trouble with time. If we add all the NDCs we have so far in this new deadline, because the first one was in February, we are, you know, in a clear trend to 3 degrees increase. This is really not what we expect, what it should be, what science is telling us. So the climate crisis is intensifying, but we also know that the crisis that doesn't hit everybody equally. No, this looks like a already made phrase, a platitude, but it's real. It is true. Women and girls are already facing far-reaching inequalities on different fronts, disproportionately bear the impacts. And basically, I think it's very much connected with the struggle for women's rights and the struggle to address and fight inequalities, as I said, in all fronts. Basically, what we see and the data tells us is that in the current scenario, climate change may push 240 million more additional women and girls into food insecurity by 2050, compared to 131 million of men and boys. 131 million for men and boys, and 240 million for women and girls. That's how, you know, the impact of climate is so uneven. If we talk about water insecurity, the same health impacts, Emilia, and health impacts, Flavia, also heat waves, pollution, and the spread of vector-borne diseases are also different for women than for men. So basically, I have a long list of things that really show with evidence, with numbers, with science, that us women and girls are really taking, the heat literally of the climate shocks and impact. So as we approach COP30, we really look forward to the long-awaited progress on climate finance with the Bahá'í roadmap. We really need the 1.3 trillion, and I'm speaking to Vidar here, the climate champion for COP29. Yes, exactly. Please write us a check. And we know, for example, that when you look at the entire spectrum of climate finance, 2% on adaptation, 4% on mitigation goes earmarked for women. Really not enough. Really not enough. We're also hoping, we're not hoping, it's going to happen, that the new Gender Action Plan will be adopted by COP30 in Belém. This is a great step forward, but the Gender Action Plan will not touch the ground if it doesn't have the three enabling needs: the money, the capacity, and the technology. And that is why we are hoping that the world will come together in this global mutirao that Brazil is calling for. Mutirao, in my country, Ecuador, and in my language, we call it, let me check that. Yeah, we have a little bit of a battery, but we will change my. Well, yeah, I think we're okay for now. Basically, we really hope that COP30 will be the COP of women, for women, and under the leadership of women. Ministra Marina Silva, Ministra Sonia, Ministra, Anatoni, everybody. I think that we need more women leading the negotiations, raising their voices. These people here next to me and Dan will be at the forefront, making sure that we are part of the solution, of the negotiations, and of the transformation. I didn't say who I was. My name is Maria Espinosa. I am the Executive Director of GWA Voices. And once again, welcome. And I think that we are all here because we care. And we have been for decades in the climate space. We are very conscious of what needs to be done. And we are worried that we are having our 30th COP and emissions continue to grow and continue to hurt women impact. So that's why we're here. I'm going to just not use the CVs of these people because it's really a repetition, because the world knows them. They know who they are. And I'm going to go straight into the conversation. This is intended to be a free flow conversation with these amazing leaders that have done so much already, to rebalance climate and bring a better life to women on the ground with the decisions we take. So let's start by a person who no one knows. She's called Mary Robinson, a former president of Ireland and High Commissioner of Human Rights. And I won't say anything else, Mary, but I can say chair of the elders, of course. Former chair, I forget, but it seems like a former chair of the elders, and etc., etc. But I will start with Mary, because Mary needs to leave a little early. And I have specific questions for you, but I would skip the specific question. Mary, tell us, share with us, how do you see the climate space right now? How do you see the leadership of Brazil? And what are the things that you would like to see happen in COP30?
Thank you very much, Maria, and it's wonderful being on this great panel. Actually, it's wonderful being in front of this audience too. I see so many activists who are already engaged on the ground and engaged in building the resilience of women all over the world and fighting for gender equality, etc. These are very tough times. Yesterday, Hindou and myself, is Hindou hasn't arrived yet? Yeah, Hindou and myself helped to launch the second planetary health check. And the news is not good. It's about the 9 planetary boundaries, meaning the 9 ecosystems that sustain the planet and the world and ourselves. And last year, we were in breach of 6 of those 9 ecosystems. This year, we're in breach of 7. And the 7th is the oceans, the acidification of the oceans. These boundaries, these ecosystems interact with each other. The acidification of the oceans threatens the coral reefs. The coral reefs are essential for humanity. The oceans are essential for humanity. So we are at extreme risk. We are in a climate and nature crisis of an extraordinarily serious nature. But it's all solvable. All we have to do is switch the money in a massive way, get out of fossil fuel, stop subsidizing what's harming us, etc. We know what to do. But unfortunately, leaders are not in crisis mode. Even those who, had been prioritizing climate are so distracted now. The aggressive war by Russia on Ukraine has really, spread now to real fear among some European countries, understandably. And somehow that means the climate and nature crisis is slipping down the agenda. It mustn't slip down the agenda. So we really need to put pressure, first of all, on heads of state coming to Berlin. Berlin is so important. Secondly, we do need much better ambition in the NDCs. And we need the Gender Action Plan, all of that. Interestingly, I welcome the fact that Brazil, having the presidency, had the courage to change the conversation. And the way they did it was to say, look, we have a stocktake in Dubai of how the climate plans, the nationally determined contributions of member states added up. And it was bad news. We're not on course. It was technical, numbers, dull. And Brazil had the imagination, but it was actually Marina Silva, the Minister for Planet of Brazil, who said, we want to have an ethical global stocktake. And we've had the official ethical global stocktake. I had the honor to co-lead with Marina the European stocktake in Kew Gardens. I'm just trying to think, is there anybody there from it? You were there, yeah. And Wanjira Mathai co-led the African one. Michelle Bachelet co-led the American. Karina Gore, Al Gore's daughter, co-led the North American, and the others were led by Amatis. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But 4 of us, women, presented the results of the official stocktakes to President Lula yesterday in the mission with Marina Silva and the President of the COP and others. But this isn't the end. This is the start, if you like, of a much wider mobilization. I will be on the 1st of October at the 10th anniversary of Laudato Si in Rome, again with Marina Silva, co-leading a faith-based ethical stocktake. For every one of us who've become involved in them, it's been kind of, it's been like breathing a different air. We've come out of it feeling, if only, because we talked about compassion, we talked about empathy, we talked about justice. Let me give you an example from the European that just stayed with me. Nick Stern, Lois Stern, great economist, got 5 minutes. They all got 5 minutes. He took 4 of his 5 minutes talking about justice, rather talking about the injustice of the climate issue. It's, he did it brilliantly, and then he did 1 minute. He tied up the whole 1.3 trillion very neatly, because he's able to do that. In a way, we need to lift ourselves and have the courage to say what we really want in our world and how and it's the mobilization, I think, globally. The good news is, polling shows the vast majority of people in the world want action on climate, want it taken seriously. And that's what Project Dandelion is all about, mobilizing women. I love the way young people are mobilizing. It's wonderful. And they've got terrific social media followers, but we're not still coming together enough. So I'm passionate about how we will grow our strength, because unless leaders feel the push, this is so important. You have to take it more seriously. You have to get into crisis mode. And then we'll solve this. If they would only get into crisis mode, I've spoken for long enough anyway, they will solve the problem. And we have a responsibility, all of us, to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. What's incredible about Mary is her optimism.
No, I'm a prisoner of hope.
Because if you walk in the street, perhaps someone can say, yes, we can solve the issue. The problem is that she understands how bad reality is, and still, she has her hope level high. I was the next day in London with you, Mary, during the Global Stock Take with civil society. And I came up because I was there for Climate Week, and I couldn't breathe at the end. So that was my last day, and I could breathe again after this exercise. So let's be realistic, understand the real politics behind this, push for what we need to push, and never lose hope. I think Mary is the leading example of that. Let me now turn to Patricia Espinosa, yet another climate champion. As we all know, she was the executive secretary of UNFCCC, and former foreign minister of foreign affairs of Mexico, and more importantly, she's the special envoy of COP30 for Latin America and the Caribbean. So, Patricia, you know how the convention works in and out. You've traveled Latin America. You were in the meeting for Latin America and the Caribbean in Mexico recently. So, how do you see, the current landscape, expectations for COP30? But what are the key challenges? Because you are the master on house negotiation, and I think we should be ambitious and yet realistic on what is, how far we can go with all of this. So the floor is yours here.
Thank you very much, Maria Fernanda, and it's such an honor to be part of this amazing panel and to have this incredible audience today. While there is so much going on in New York, you chose to be here. So that means a lot to me, and I'm sure to everyone here. Thank you for your incredible work. I see here many leaders, some I don't know, but it just shows how committed you are. And this is what we need. And maybe before I go to the question of Maria Fernanda, just to say, I think it's important to have very much present the fact that inclusion does not happen automatically. Yes, we have the frameworks. We have the Beijing action platform. We have the gender action plan. We hope that it's going to be, the new version is going to be adopted. Yes, but all of that will not mean anything if we are not active in promoting its implementation, its enforcement. So just a few a few months ago, we were in another conversation to celebrate the 30 years of the Beijing Platform for Action. And what I said is, I think we need to see today, again, this activism, this mobilization about the issues that we really care about. Yes, we need to be very, very clear that the voices, and today, in today's world, the voices that are heard are the ones that are winning the battle in social media, right? So, but we need to see how we can capture that. And that is, yes, we need to work through social media, but we also need to be active, present, really, really present for this. At the national level, in the communities, at school, at work, everywhere. Now, how do I see things for the COP? Well, I don't have to tell you how difficult the scenario is. I think we really have to acknowledge the fact that we will have not a good result of the synthesis report. Whatever comes now, yesterday, I think there was the announcement by China. I think was a good news that China announced its NDC. Now, the number was very low, right? But I'm afraid in the current scenario, we're having a situation where there's really very little more moral authority for anybody to tell anybody, why don't you do more, Well, we are seeing that others that could do more are not doing it, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that is part of reality. And we need to, and I would say it's important, to speak about it because we need to manage expectations. The truth is that the NDCs that have come in are of a much higher quality in the sense that they are covering much more. They are also in many cases including some implementation plans. So I think we need to be very, very objective and see that it doesn't mean that everything is bad, right? There is progress in many ways. And the other big issue is the issue of finance that is going to be present at the COP. And that the issue of finance is important. As important as it is, it's also clear that we are not seeing more finance, right? And that actually we are seeing a drastic reduction in international cooperation. So I think we need to also assume this reality. And at the same time, I think we need to be very clear. What are we going to do in this scenario? Are we just going to give up? No. So that means we need to be looking at what we can do in terms of actions now in the current circumstances. And there's a lot that we can do. And I think this is one area where Brazil has been very bright in putting the emphasis on the implementation, right? And so the implementation, yes, when we think about implementation, we really think immediately about the financial needs, which are absolutely critical, yes, but there are many things that can be done, community-led projects, there are also just governance issues that need to be addressed and that can have a very important impact. There is really a lot of possibilities of things that we can do. The other point that is going to be very critical is the issue, and this is very controversial, the issue of the transitioning away from fossil fuels, right? And some conversations are going on now about it, and I think it's becoming clearer that the scenario about transitioning away from fossil fuels is not a black and white scenario, right? And I think that conversation needs to be deepened. I would expect that hopefully we can get out of COP with a process to really address the different aspects that need to be addressed. And I would say we also need to have the oil and gas companies at the table, because we need to make them really accountable. Otherwise, they have all the excuse to say, well, they don't want to talk to me, so I just take the decisions I want. So I believe that I took too much.
Thank you, Patricia. I don't know if it's my microphone. Okay, thank you so much. And it really shows, how much, profound knowledge you have, and also what are the limits, what are the possibilities, what are the challenges. But I think that we need the energy, like the energy of this room, to continue pushing, to continue trusting, to continue. I think, to continue believing in the process and in the capacity of leaders to really make the difference. That's why it's so important that leaders come to Melanne for the Leaders Summit. And this is going to set the tone to what we are going to see in the negotiations part. So thank you so much, Patricia, for your wisdom. And you mentioned companies. And I think it's a good time for me to bring Nigar Alpadarai. Nigar, she doesn't need to be introduced. As you know, she's the UN Climate Change Technical Champion for COP29. And she did an outstanding job bringing the private sector in and bring them, you brought them on board and make them commit themselves to do things differently and to be part of what we're asking for, which is a just transition that leaves no one behind. So you have the floor, Nika.
Thank you so much. First of all, it's such a great honor to share a panel with such a distinguished women leaders. It's a great honor for me, and I would like to say that I'm inspired to see all of you here, and I'm also inspired to see the full room of people who came to listen to us, and I'm happy that we have male also. We have men here, not only women, because we don't want to talk to only women. So thank you for coming and being with us. And yes, well, it has been a challenging year, as you know, COP29, a couple of months ago, we've seen the whole world in Azerbaijan. But as just to share a couple of things that I wanted to share, I will start with the lessons learned that I've had throughout all this journey. First of all, for those of you who don't know what Climate Champion is, the COP process is quite complicated. We have negotiations and we have non-state actor community. So non-state actor community like private sector, civil society, academia, young people, cities, all these groups have a word and they all need to be engaged. So this is the role of the champion to engage all these groups. And each year we see COP becoming bigger and bigger. And there are many arguments about that. There are people saying that why do we need so big COPs, why do we need private sector on board? So I was a strong supporter of having everyone on board. And as COP29 presidency, we try to really have this inclusive COP where everyone is joining. The role of the private sector is extremely important because if we speak about green transition, if we speak about the global climate action, whatever governments will decide on, it will be on the communities, it will be on the private sector. And even when we speak about technologies, when we speak about the finance, when we speak about the role of private sector and the green economy, so this is where we need to involve, the whole of society. And we not only try to engage with large companies, but also with small and medium enterprises because they are struggling, in this transition. They don't have access to finance, they don't have capacity, they don't understand all these standards. So we really try to bring small and medium enterprises on board. But a couple of things, like we need to understand that we live in a very fragmented world. There are so many wars, trade wars, conflicts, crisis situations, arms race that we witness every day. And climate action, climate agenda is the best alternative which unites all of us. It's the best alternative to the arm race that we see now happening. So this is something that humanity has never done before. We are trying as humanity to set up standards and restrict our consumption, restrict our emissions. And that's a beautiful thing to do because we understand that we do it for us and for future generations. And it's not only the economic issue, it's the issue of social justice, it's a woman gender issue, it's the small communities. And that's definitely is, and as high-level champion, I had a chance to see people from different parts of the world. And there were people that were saying, they were coming from small island states, for example. They were saying that every time we go back, we don't know whether we will be able to go back because our country, the level of ocean is rising, and we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And yesterday we've been at UN, and there was 2 professors speaking, and you can clearly see, what their motives are. So, but what we need the universal rules for all, because international law is not working in many cases. And the international law that we've seen from the Second World War time is really not working. So we need the universal rules that will be applicable for all, for small and large nations. We need to engage all sectors and all countries, and I'm happy that Ms. Espinosa has mentioned that this oil and gas companies. We do need oil and gas companies. So what I've seen is that green agenda, this climate agenda, often falls into moralization and value signaling, into ideological thing. It's not about that. It's about engaging everyone. We need oil and gas companies because they should be responsible and they should be sharing the table. And we also need to really explore the potential of AI. I know everyone is talking about that, but we are not doing that. AI is changing the way we do our research, we learn. It's changing the way governments operate. It's changing the way the private sector is operating. It changes the labor market so hard and at such a speed that our generation will not be catching up. I am a mother of 2 kids, and I don't know what's going to be in 10 years to come. So we need to explore that potential, and we need to create ecosystem for private sector, for companies to be incentivized enough to come up with finance, with solutions, with technologies. I think I will stop here.
Thank you, Nigar. And I think indeed, yes, we very much need to have a private sector at the table, and we need that they are accountable, but they feel that they're part of the game. You made a big effort, especially bringing small and medium enterprises to the conversation. So thank you very, very much. I would like now to call on Melanne Verveer. She's the executive director of the Georgetown Institute for Women, Peace and Security, and former United States ambassador at large for global women's issues. And the more we experience and see the pains caused by climate change, we realize that they are increasingly connected to conflict, Melanne. So your institute does precisely that, to document, to look, to advise, to track how much conflict is connected to the climate crisis. What, in terms of your advice and how you see things unravel, what would be your advice on the things that we need to bring into the conversation, but into the negotiation?
Well, thank you, Maria Fernanda. And it's such an inspiration for me to sit here with these extraordinary leaders. We all stand, and I include myself, on their shoulders. I remember years ago, when I was ambassador, Mary Robinson called me, and the COP conference in Durban was coming up, and she said, "You've got to get here to Durban." And I said, my own government isn't really integrating gender into climate, and I don't know quite how I'm going to pull this off. Needless to say, I was on a plane to Durban because Mary just, in her wisdom, knew that we had to bring together all the forces we could, and whether this representative from the United States was officially there as part of climate was was not so significant as being there. And I remember afterwards, one of the members of our climate delegation said to me, "Why are you here?" And I said, I explained the integration of gender into the climate issue. And the response was, "Oh, yeah, that's a really good idea. We should be considering that." So we've come a distance in a good way, but we still have a road to travel. And I want to build on what Patricia said, because, you know, the Beijing Women's Conference, we are marking 30 years. 3 decades ago, a platform for action was adopted by consensus by 189 governments. But that platform included, we didn't call it climate in those days, we called it the environment. It included women's action in peace and security. It included the critical development issues that we're all very aware of. And what that represented was tens of thousands of women in the civil society, as well as all the government leaders. So it was a coming together of the movement, if you will, and it was a movement. And I'm looking at our WeDo friends here, and Bella Abzug was the matriarch of all of this in many ways, but reminding us how all of this fit together. And I think we do need the same kind of stimulus this time around. We've got to get ourselves into a spirit of movement that just brings in extraordinary numbers of people, men and women. And it's particularly inspiring for me to look at all of you, because there are a lot of young faces, and you really are going to be the extraordinary people who build this movement. And so I'm thinking about this week, and we've been marking 30 days of Beijing, which then moved into the 2030 agenda, the SDGs. We know that climate is a big part of that agenda, security is a big part of that agenda, and women's equality is a part of that agenda. So you have the integration into the SDGs, and this week, Sima Bahous and UN Women released a gender snapshot describing how far we need to go in the next 5 years if we're going to achieve the goals. So that's a big push for us. But at the same time, we're marking 25 years of a resolution called Women, Peace, and Security, which the Security Council adopted, and it was 9 times over additional resolutions that basically said women are critical actors in peace and security. And in the process of adopting those additional resolutions, climate was included eventually. So you've got the critical integration of understanding that climate is a serious issue. And what we're seeing, as I'm sure all of you know, is that with the impacts of climate disproportionately on women, that as they are experiencing the lack of livelihoods and everything these extreme temperatures and weather and droughts and floods are causing, they're moving. And the displacement is creating enhanced competition for resources. That competition, whether it's farmers and herders in parts of Africa, or whether it's other kinds of things that are happening in other places, is creating conflict. And 13 of the 15 most vulnerable countries on climate are also experiencing some form of conflict. So this climate is now a security issue, and increasingly has to be recognized as such, so it becomes part of this equation. And thirdly, we get to Climate Week. So we've had these 2 anniversaries, and here we all are making the case again for the integration of these issues. I'm not going to talk more about the Gender Action Plan or the NDCs, but the urgency is there. And we really have to understand how gender equality, the security of the world, and the climate crisis and what it represents all are part of a whole. And to divide them is to really keep us in silos where only the climate people get together and only the women's people get together. when we all need to be bringing this issue to all of the tables where those issues are being discussed and acted on.
Thank you, Melanne. And I think when you mentioned the issue of the close connection between conflict and climate and women and girls, I thought I was going to call immediately on Hindou, but not yet. And no, because immediately when I see these things, what comes to my mind is Lake Chad, no? And you can see in front of your eyes, people being displaced, Lake Chad drying out, and in the people that you see physically moving away, women and girls. Women, carrying their children and just saying, we need water, and when we need a place where we can get food. As simple as that. But I'm not calling on you yet, Hindou, because, but in any case, just for the people that are standing up, there are many empty chairs still. First row, women have to be first row, that we know. So there are places here. I see people standing up, sitting at the sides and everything. But I would like to call on Maliha Khan. She's the president and executive officer of Women Deliver, a great partner of this. And I mentioned the NDCs and in one part of the missing words in NDCs, but I think that everywhere is girls and adolescents in the climate narrative, but also in the climate responses. So my question to you would be, how to revert that? In addition to give them voice and authority and power to say what they need to say, but also to act upon and to receive the resources they need to act. Over to you, Maliha.
Well, thank you, Maria. Just so people don't miss Hindou's answer too much, I can channel the people of Pakistan who've gone through the second worst floods ever in history, the fourth time that it's floods of the century that should never happen, and those make the headlines. What doesn't make the headlines is the incredible heat stress that happens every single year in Pakistan for the last 5-6 years. Temperatures reaching over 50 degrees. 50 degrees. And over 40 degrees for months on end. It just never dips, right? So if you want to think about the impact of climate on the people who contribute the least to the climate crisis, think about the women and girls from my village, which is in Upper Sindh, which regularly face these heat stresses, and then as relief comes and the monsoon comes, get devastating floods. Absolutely 6 feet of water staying there for a month. A few years ago, it was for a month and a half. Literally 6 feet of water for a month and a half in 1/3 of the country. So we don't have to just think about Lake Chad. There's so many other places we can think about. So why think about girls and women? Because it's their bodies that bear the burden of the climate crisis, right? They are not only the caregivers. Every time something happens, they have to drop everything and take care of their families. They have to walk further, do all the things that they need to do in order to provide sustenance to the people that they love. But also, they have less resilience, right? Because of their lack of bodily autonomy, because of their lack of education, to the degrees that others around them have. They're not as resilient. They can't bounce back as quickly from a shock or a stress. And this is where the geek in me comes out, because for years I worked on measuring resilience. Resilience, the way we conceptualize it, stops at the household level. So we have no idea of the gender or age disaggregation of how resilient people are or what makes them resilient. So intuitively and anecdotally, we know that a 14-year-old adolescent girl who's going to be pulled out of school, who's going to be married early, who's going to face early sexual initiation, who's going to face early childbirth, who's going to do that with a heat stress, is going to have a low birth rate infant, who's going to have to take care of herself and others in the household, that she's never going to recover in the same ways that say a 44-year-old man who already is educated or has a job, etc., is able to do, even if they're in the same household. And that's really important to remember. So that's why it's really important to keep adolescent girls in mind, because adolescence is where the fate of the rest of her life is decided. And we can go back when she's in her 20s and 30s and 40s and say, lean in, lift yourself up, and all of those other things that we've been saying for 30 years to girls and women around the world, but it is just eminently unfair. The other thing I'll say, and I'm going to learn from the fact that I'm surrounded by politicians. Very successful politicians too. Huge kudos to all of you. I'm going to answer the question I want to answer, not the one you asked me. And I want to learn from this. I want to pick up on something that Vigar said, and as soon as she said it, I wrote it down here. And that was that the international rules-based order is not working.
Yeah.
Or I should say, it's working for some who choose to use it when they want to and choose to ignore it when they don't want to. But it's not working for the rest of us. And we're seeing an unprecedented attack on that rules-based order with genocide that's being enabled, with a complete ignoring of the climate crisis and their contributions to it, and on and on. Right? And the mask of the hypocrisy has been ripped, and we're no longer, I mean, many of us who are not from those countries that benefit from it are just like, we're done with this, right? And the whole pretense of ODA is gone now. When Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the UK, said we will no longer be the charity of the world, right? That to me was a moment of like, good gosh, this is never coming back again, and we don't want it to come back again. Right? That is what it's been perceived as, the soft arm of these countries, the charity that these countries are giving to others. That's not a system that's going to ever, ever, ever serve those girls and women who are being flooded out in Pakistan over and over and over again. We know it's built up against them. I do also want to acknowledge what Mary said. I'm a big acolyte of Mary. I'm even wearing the socks she gave me a while ago. Dandelion socks, right? When you become a dandelion, they dress you foot in it. And say that, I'm also a prisoner of hope. Because where this is a crisis, there's also the opportunity to change the system. And this is where we've got to go back to our activist roots, go back to our politician roots, go back to, yes, we have to still engage with the processes, we have to know the science, we have to know the third committee of X, Y, and Z, and the, and acronym X, the 80 acronyms that are doing whatever they're doing. But we also have to mobilize, right? And the mobilization has to draw on the one mobilization that happened across the world that led to the platform, and Melanne referred to it, of Beijing, right? And that was the feminist movement. I'm not talking about the first wave, the second wave, and whatever. I'm talking about millions and millions of girls and women all over the world who said, I want a better life. I want a better life for myself, and I certainly want a better life for my daughter. And we need to marry the feminist movement with the climate crisis movement. Yes. There's too much separation between the two. It's an immensely powerful force that can really bring about the changes we want to see. And in order to do that, we have to, at this moment of crisis, reimagine the international sector, the order, the relationship between all of these institutions, and actually make it one that serves girls and women everywhere. And in that, I invite all of us to come together, remember our activists and our movement roots, act in the committees that we're invited to, pull up a chair where we're not invited, but also mobilize millions and millions of people around the world to actually make this happen.
Refreshing our memories on the impacts. Yes, it is not about Lake Chad only, it's everywhere. It's everywhere, even in the so-called developed countries. when we talk about extreme heat and who is dying of extreme heat in Europe and the United States. I think it's a big issue. And when you say there is a trust situation where with a multilateral system and how it's working, I would say yes, but it's on us to transform it. And when I say this, Mary unfortunately needs to leave us. When I say this, one of the answers to that is perhaps something that the elders, has put together, and Mary wants to share with us before she leaves.
Just very briefly, maybe two things, and I'm really emphasizing that it's important for young people. Young people changed the way in which we look at the legal obligations because the law students in Vanuatu joined with law students in the Pacific, joined with youth globally, persuaded Vanuatu to take this to the General Assembly. I thought they were mad. I encouraged them. I thought, this is crazy. How did this work? We got a great decision of the General Assembly, and we got a brilliant opinion of the International Court of Justice, which says there is a legal obligation, and there will be law cases, many law cases, I think, arising out of that. And it also affects countries that have withdrawn, only one country, withdrawing from the climate. Doesn't mean they don't have the legal obligation. But I just wanted, because we do know that the system is very fragmented, our world is very fragmented. As elders, we put together this paper, not defending the status quo at all, but actually working through it, what we can do, what we need to do, etc. And I think it does give hope. We're just about to launch it, and that's where I'm going to now. It'll be on our website, which is theelders.org, and you can download it from there. We need to think together constructively, even in this fragmented world. And apologies for leaving, but it's been a great meeting, and let's repeat the Beijing experience that really mobilized and changed the world. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mary. Thank you. For this policy and applause for Mary once again for keeping it along. Well, stay with us because now we are going to bring a he for she, a very special man. And believe me, when we think about gender and okay, I thought she forgot, she gave it to me. Okay, and when we make this list of the best people working on women and climate, in the list of women, I don't know why, but automatically Dan Perel comes to play. So it's not, you're not the token man. You are real. We need your voice and we need your wisdom. So Daniel Perel, he's very famous, but in any case, he's the representative to the United Nations for the Bahá'í International Community. And not only he for she, but he is a great thinker, a great transformer, and highly committed to the gender and climate agenda. You have the floor. And
thank you. Thank you so much. There we go. Thank you so much. So, I think I want to start with how I'm feeling. Because I actually think that we need to make space for how we're feeling in these spaces. And for those of you who know me, these are going to be unusual feelings from me. Usually I'm feeling confident, a little bit rambunctious maybe. But right now I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling out of my depth. Yeah. I'm feeling quite privileged to be here. I just want to thank you for trusting me to offer a few words. Just to comment on a few things that I've heard so far. You just said he for she. I've always been uncomfortable with that. I'm more of a he for we kind of person. Because I think we all need to figure out how to make this world better. And as long as we keep creating these dichotomies, we're risking losing some portion of the world. Another item I thought would be helpful to share is you were saying partners in crime and then partners in trouble and all of this. I was thinking about the partners in progress. Something that, more thinking about where we want to go. Another comment I heard earlier was, we're here because we care. And I'd have you thinking about this word care, which I think is so undervalued, especially across the streets. And it's something that we can all bring. We're all sisters and brothers and fathers and sons and daughters and mothers. We all know what care is. We've all experienced the loss of an elderly relative or the disease of a friend. That's when you show care. And somehow when we get across the streets, we don't show care anymore. Our heart has to be hidden behind a sign in front of us. And I think that's really dangerous. And this is why, to me, the global ethical stocktake, of which Mary Robinson spoke earlier, is actually so special, because it actually invites us to have a conversation with our whole self. I've attended a number of them. I attended the official North America one last week, a number of self-organized ethical stocktakes. And in each of them, we bring both the mind and the heart, the science and the emotion, dare I say the love. And I think the solutions that we come to when we welcome love into a space are so different from the solutions where we leave our love at the door. And I just wonder, through this global ethical stocktake and other initiatives like it, it's not the only one, what kind of solutions can we create? And I think, in some sense, the invitation for women's leadership and women's participation and funding for women is actually not just because, certainly, not just because of women as a class or a group of rights holders, but because the solutions for all of humanity and nature and the earth and future generations will be made better by the participation of diverse voices, and especially in this moment of carelessness, the voice that's traditionally associated with care. I think that the last element I want to just share are the qualities that can be brought into these spaces. We talk a lot about participation, universal participation, the participation of different types of groups. But I think about the other side. How is it that those who are hosting the meeting acknowledge their own limitations of knowledge, that they don't have participation because they want more voices, but they want participation because they don't have the answers yet. And it needs to be co-created. It's a different way of approaching participation. But it's about humility. And humility is dramatically devalued across this group. If you're humble, if you admit that you don't know something, your career could be over. Well, what kind of world is that? We have to always be learning. Empathy is seen as emotional. Emotion is seen as vulnerability. And vulnerability is confused for a lack of conviction. That is not what we teach our sons and daughters, and yet somehow that's what we value here. And so I think when we're in these conversations, it's very easy to get to the numbers, and I'm so grateful to those who preceded me and will come after, will bring that substantive richness that I sort of lack. But to do so from this posture of humility and learning is something we can all try our best to achieve, and I think that is truly why we need this he for we idea, for the betterment of all of us and those of us to come. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan. Now you understand when you make the list, he always comes up. Thank you for the he for we. I think it really makes sense for recalling that it is about humility, that is about deep listening. It's about understanding where are our limits. It's about deep listening, and at the end of the day, it is about love. So thank you for all of that wisdom, Dan. Let me now turn to Maiara Folly. Thank you also for partnering with us. Maiara is the executive director and co-founder of Plataforma CIPÓ from Brazil. And the obvious question to the Brazilian in the room, of course, is about COP30 and what are the scenarios, what are the hopes, what are the challenges. As a Latin American, I can tell you we heard, no, this is not the COP of Brazil. This is the COP of Latin America. No, that's why Patricia is doing the work she's doing. This is the COP of the Amazon. I come from an Amazonian country myself. what is the difference? What, this huge dream called the TFFF, what is going to be different in Brazil? Over to you, Maiara.
Thank you, Maria Fernanda. It's a real pleasure to be partnering with you and all the others in this initiative. It's very difficult to find what else can I add after those interventions, but let's start then with Brazil and COP30. I think as others have already mentioned, Brazil has framed this COP as the COP of implementation and has done some great initiatives, for instance, by aligning the action agenda with the objectives of the global stocktake around all really the sectors from the energy to oceans resilience and reflecting that in 30 very specific objectives. And this is all very welcome. President Lula has done a step further by calling the COP of truth. It will be the moment where we will be able to ask the leaders whether they will have the courage to implement what they have already committed, and the global ethical stocktake that Dan and others have mentioned is part of the framing of implementation. But I think what we've been also calling for, and we recently published a piece together, Maria Fernanda and Federal Congresswoman Jackie Rocha, on the need for the COP to be the COP of women as well. And that I think we still need to call the attention of our presidency to give greater voices to women. And I think there are some specific things that we can achieve at this COP, starting first with the issue of representation, right? When we look at the delegates, only 38% in COP29 last year were women, only 32% of them were head of delegations. It was a slight improvement from Dubai, but we need to be ambitious. We need to ask for parity, and Brazil, as the presidency, needs to set the example. As it has already been mentioned here, we have Maria Silva, we have Minister Sonia Guajajara, and others. Our head of delegation is a woman, in fact, but we need to do more, and we also need to think of the diversity within those women as well, across, for instance, racial lines, etc. So this is one thing that we hope to improve at COP30. Another thing is that a lot has been said here already about the Gender Action Plan, which we hope will be adopted, but we really need to make sure that we mainstream women across all of the other aspects of the negotiation, from the adaptation agenda to mitigation, ease of implementation, and just transition. So when we talk about adaptation, we will hopefully adopt at COP30 a new set of indicators, right? Hopefully 100 indicators. And we need to make sure that there is a gender lenses in there so we are able to track whether or not we have made progress in terms of supporting, for instance, adaptation policies and measures that benefit women. When we talk about another key aspect of the negotiations this year is just transition. And the Just Transition Work Program has been discussing a lot the impact that the transition might have on workers and the need for retraining, reskilling. But we need to make sure that the needs of women, including care workers, including women who work in the informal sectors, which is in our region, Latin America, is a huge proportion of that. We need to make sure that we are also thinking of social protection mechanisms to support those women as we transition to low carbon economy. And of course, finally, the issue of finance is crucial. Maria Fernanda and others have already mentioned. We need, when we talk about transparency around financial flows, whether we are talking about tracking the delivery of the UNFCCC or the Baku to Belém roadmap, we need to ask ourselves how much of that money is actually going to women and women-led organizations. We're talking about 1.2 trillion. Now we elevated the ambition, but the percentage has been mentioned. It's very neglectable. And these are the issues, of course, within the convention, but we also need to talk about broader issues outside the UNFCCC, which relates to costs of capital, for instance, that makes developing countries, it makes it really hard for them to be able to invest in clean energy, and that affects, of course, women disproportionately. unilateral trade measures. This is a topic that has been affecting a lot the conversation at the UNFCCC, and we know that those measures impact small businesses and family agriculture much harder. In the case of countries like Brazil, for instance, family agriculture is where women are, and we need to have a gender lenses to address that. And yes, and to conclude, I think, we need to shift the power dynamics of the system in general, especially at the leadership position. And I'm glad that Nigar is here, because I think the Back to the Land roadmap is an entry point, but we at least start asking the question, where is the money and how can we make it reach women? So we hope to see you all in the lane. As Maria Fernanda said, the COP of the Amazon, the COP of implementation, and also the COP of women.
Thank you. And thank you, I think, because yes, as a leadership of President Lula, of all these incredible women in Brazil, but the leadership, the intellect, and the wisdom of the Brazilian society as a whole. And that includes Plataforma CIPÓ, which I forgot to mention, is an women-only think tank in Brazil. And Maiara is the executive director. They're doing great work in connecting science, policy, and transformation on the ground in the climate space, but in the development and the finance space. So thank you, Maiara, for that. And get the cherry on the cake, they say in English. And but now I'm turning to Hindou, and with an off microphone. This other microphone doesn't work. This works. Okay. So Hindou, we want a few minutes for a quick Q&A part, but I want to give the floor to Hindou. And she's a Bororo indigenous woman from Chad, as I mentioned. And she's president of the Indigenous Women and Peoples Association of Chad, SDG advocate, vice chair of the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, and 20 more things, running around like headless chicken, trying to make the world a better place. Getting all the prizes every day. I look and she got the next award and the next prize, because the world understands how important the work that you're doing is, Hindou. It's a pleasure to have you here. And, I don't have any specific question to you. The question to you is very short. We are in a mess right now. What to do? What is your guidance? Because you are the doer, the maker, and the shaker. And we've known each other, I think, for how long? For decades. Since Hindou was a very, very young, smart, and powerful woman. She continues to be powerful, young, but perhaps now wiser. More important, the Pope and Hindou, it's ten con ten, no? It's about the same. So, happy to have you here, Hindou. You have a...
Thank you. So what we can do first is we need to put indigenous people in the center.
Yes.
Everything. Just to say. Yeah. So thank you so much for this panel. I'm so glad to be with all dandelions, with all the doers, and I think what we need also, we need this kind of history, but in a global level, to change all the crises. And we need also indigenous peoples to be in the center. I'm not kidding, I wanted to sit next to you, of course, but for all what we are doing around the world. From what we hear here, we hear from climate, biodiversity, conflict, etc., all that. But all that are the crises that are increasing around the world. They are not decreasing. Every single day we sleep, we wake up, we have something new to be added in our agenda. And this is the problem. Are we listening from ourselves? Are we listening from what we are advocating there at the UN or outside of the UN? So many gatherings. So we know the problems, but we still adding them. This is a problem for indigenous peoples. We say when you know something, you resolve it, but you do not add it. And when you talk about something, you implement it. You do not leave your words just flowing out there. So, how we can resolve it? I think this is the part I'm very interested about all the world's crises. We have so many. How we can resolve it? So, firstly, we need to learn from our own self. And learning from ourselves is listening to what indigenous peoples are telling us for thousands of years. Indigenous peoples have telling the world, we are not moving in the right directions because we are more destructive. We are not giving back to the world. People say, yes, you are right. Nothing about it. Indigenous people are saying, we cannot tackle one problem here in silo. Everything is interconnected. We cannot talk about ocean without glaciers. We cannot talk about forests without savannas. We cannot talk about the mountains without the people who are living in the desert. And how we can tackle our common issues together. And this is the 3 Rio Conventions. Easy. We have climate change, biodiversity, we have desertification. And top, we have the SDGs. So how we can put all that in the same pocket? From government side, of course we have different ministries, but those agendas cannot be tackled in silo. They have to be consulted. And that's why I was thinking government having a prime minister who's head of government. What is the role? They're just checking the box. Then, when you come to the international conferences, yes, we agree we wanted to have all this synergy. But we still do not see that in the real action. The agenda on gender, on climate change is different. The one in the biodiversity. And it's different the one on the desertification. But it is the same negotiators. Are we serious? When we say gender is important in one place, but it's less important in another one. So we are playing with our own self. And as indigenous peoples, we say women are the mothers of all. That's why we call the Mother Earth, because you can contain everything. So if we are putting it in silo, it cannot work. So from this analogy, to get out from the crisis, we need to be bold. We need to be courageous, because we are lacking of this courage. We need to tell the truth. To be bold, we have to talk with the business leaders to tell them what they are doing is wrong. But not talking to their environment person, whatever, how you call them, the environment.
Sustainable.
Yeah.
Sustainable.
Yeah, so you get that. Any company now, to make it sexy, I nominate a head of environment or climate in my company. So I'll talk to her. No, I refuse that. They say, tell to the CEO. Okay, the CEO, what is the role they are implementing? I refuse that. Talk to the board of each company. This is where they are taking the decision. We can have any fossil fuel, any company there, if you do not talk to the board. So the CEO cannot get the guidance, and this environmental person cannot implement. So we have to stop doing that, and the board of CEO of companies need to talk to us directly, and we have to be with them. International level, we are reforming the UN, talking a lot about the UN reform. How are we going to get voice to the most vulnerable? I'm African. I have to advocate for Africa, but I'm realistic. The African voice is not there yet. We were in the meeting, just quickly on that, with Lena on 1.7 billion for indigenous peoples. The report came out. What they said? They said, yes, the direct access finance is decreased. We do not know why. Okay, because bilateral funding is going more. Then they say, funding for women decrease 24%. Use 1% of the funding. Africa we are sorry we do not get funding to Africa. So for me, this is the injustice we need to correct at the international level. You cannot say sorry every single year. Africa have been through so many sorry ways, from the colonization to the slavery to all the things, and now to the climate impact that we didn't create. And we just receive sorry every single time? That's not acceptable at all, and this is the justice we wanted to have, and particularly for women and for indigenous women in this country. So we need to take these tools. And finally, we are talking about finance for the women's rights. Where are we with the finance? We talk a lot about the funding in numbers. I'm happy Baku we progress, but it's still numbers. We do not see the real cash in the tables. The money is not there. It's wrong. The money is there. So the money is the substitute. They are putting that all in the fossil fuel. How many billions that we do have in the fossil fuel? How many we have in the nature? Nada, right? So that's where we need to change the substitute, to get this funding from the fossil fuel, to put it in the right environmental protections for all of us together. And to do that, we need to ensure some principles. So the principles of integrity. So we need to be integrity. We need to create integrity. So when we have KFFF and totally agree is very good. When we have carbon market in all, totally agree is good. But you cannot tell me 1 hectare is $4. And when someone wanted to buy down for this fossil fuel, he can give you 10,000 for 1 hectare. Of course, you sell it. So we need integrity to highlight the price of the nature that we are protecting. The second integrity, we need the funding to go to those who are protecting the nature, the indigenous peoples. We cannot anymore accept we protect the nature for nothing and other peoples just to say like, oh, let's include indigenous peoples, let's have them, they are very important. But no, we wanted to have the money to be in our communities, the direct access cash. Even we do not fill the Excel sheet, but we know how to plant the trees. We know how to protect them. So we trust them, they have to trust us back. And my final integrity, of course, the woman. We need a woman leadership to be a reality. The men are not ready to do that, so we have to grab it. Really, we have to grab this rock. How we can do that? Each woman has to stand up and back the other woman. Absolutely. We are going next year to the General Assembly where they have to get a new General Secretary. Over there, they are not ready to get a woman. But if we give them the chance, it's going to be the same. And I think when you look at even this panel, you can say a General Secretary can come from it. Why not? We can build more peace. We can have more justice, more equity, more all what we want. So we need this to be built from now, because next February is the last rendezvous for it. If there is any woman wanting to run for the General Secretary, stand up everywhere, talk to the government, shame them, blame them, do whatever that you know. But tell them that we want to have a woman who can build the peace, because men are building the war, and we do not agree for the future of our children. So that's really what we need to be bold and to change the mind, to tell the truth, to tell the world. We cannot be bad anymore. We are more than half of the world's population. We will be speaking. You don't like us, create a new planet. With us, we will do the planet that we want. I thank you.
If you wanted bold, if you wanted wise, if you wanted courageous, you got it with Hindou. So thank you so much, Hindou. Your power, your voice, your commitment, your daily work, it's just amazing. I forgot to bring my watch, so I have no idea. I think we have run out of time. So please forgive us, because we wanted you to, basically ask questions to our panelists, but we did run out of time. But I really and truly think it was so worthwhile.
This was an incredible, powerful panel, energizing, thoughtful, crisp, bold, and everything. On behalf of the co-organizer, TW Voices, Women Deliver, the Baha'i, Plataforma CIPÓ, thank you for coming. Thank you for bringing this energy to the room. And thank you for keeping your hope high, your boldness high, and your courage high. Much needed. I hope to see many of you in Melanne and more to come. So thank you, thank you. Next time, Q&A. Oh, thank you. We are going